everybody. My name is Chris Hartenstein, and I'm a VP of Client Solutions here at Consero. I've been with Consero for 10 years now and have been part of the growth plan and everything from that standpoint, and have worked with numerous clients across the board. And we are honored to have one of those today, and we'll just talk about what we can do with acquisitions and how we support those along with the other people here on the panel today. Michael, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Michael Foley. I've been with Consero for going on about 6 months. Prior to that, I was with a portfolio company by the name of Therapy Brands, and then one with named Experlogix in the CPQ space.
Chris, you want me to go? So
yeah, go ahead, Trey.
I'm glad everybody could join. I know the lunch bribe helped. I'm sure you all really wanted to come see us, but I bet it was a lunch bribe. But funny thing is, I don't think either Keith or I received our lunch bribe yet. So maybe Chris and Allison are delivering a filet mignon or something to our door after this deal. Like, we'll see. I'm Trey Chambers, CFO of Idera. I've been with the company for about 9 years now, and joined when our first private equity company came in, TA Associates, who bought the company from Austin Ventures. Idera is a business-to-business software company that sells all things really related to data, database tools, data management, data migration, also tools related to DevOps and software development, and also very specifically on software testing tools. We're about 20 years old, and the business started as a database tools solutions business. But and that's really kind of where Austin Ventures took it. But the last 8 years is where a whole lot of our change in growth and value creation came after TA got in, and then the rest of our sponsors. Most of this value was created through M&A. The last kind of 6 years, we've done, I think, 28 deals ranging in all sizes, and there's been 3 dividend recaps along the way. So the M&A engine is really where we've driven a lot of value. So we really look forward to having this discussion.
All right, Keith.
Great. Well, 28 deals and 3 div recaps along the way. You've been a busy team. That's great. So hey everyone, great to be with you this morning. My name is Keith Collins. I'm a managing director at Seaside Equity. I actually just joined here a few months ago. We're a lower middle market firm based in sunny San Diego, focused on partnering with family-led businesses to provide investment capital to drive additional growth within mission-critical services sectors. Within that, I spend all my time on the technology services sector. And prior to Seaside, I was with a firm in San Francisco called GI Partners, also focused on tech infrastructure, and then going way back in the time machine, was actually with Leonard Green in LA, and then a couple of investment banks on the East Coast before that.
All right, thank you, Keith. Thank you, everybody on the panel. We'll go ahead and start. We've got a couple of questions pre-prepared, and Trey, I'll go ahead and start with you. And I know you mentioned some of the pieces about 28 acquisitions over the last 6 years, but could you just take a second to kind of talk about what your growth philosophy is and what you guys look for in those acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, and I've been a part of a lot of companies, and we've always had an M&A bent pretty much everywhere we've been. Nothing like Idera. And I was trying to think about the number of deals kind of in my career since this, because of this event. I think because I'm so old, I couldn't really necessarily remember them all. But I think we've done about 40 deals on both the buy side and sell side since I've been doing this. And obviously, to my point earlier, the most of that's with Idera. We do deals that are both strategic and opportunistic. We're not scared to get over our skis on a deal that has higher growth when we need to pay up to get a company because it's strategic, et cetera. And we're also not scared to do a value deal that maybe not growing so fast, but we know we can get it very, very profitable. We can vastly improve the profitability and also keep that top line growing. And so we got to do a mix of all of those. And we do deals that are hundreds of millions to some small deals that are only a few million. And our first deal in 2016 that we did right after I joined the company, we actually doubled the size of the business. The business we bought was bigger than we were. Given our size now, we're focusing on bigger deals rather than small deals. I will tell you that the small deals are just as hard, if not harder, than the big deals. Small deals usually don't have the infrastructure or process. It's really messy to do the diligence and integrate. So we're actually happier looking at the big deals, although it's harder to get the valuation worked through. But that's where we're focused now. We know we can improve a company's bottom line margin, by probably 20 or 30% with our operating model. And we can do that within really less than 6 months. We outsource all the roles across all of our functions, a lot of those roles. And Consero is a part of that. Our R&D network's a big part of that. Fast integration is really critical. We get each deal in our financial systems in less than 90 days, generally 60. And we complete all the synergies, which is a big part of our value proposition, really in 90 to 120 days. So we run to the future. I mean, our CEO says that all the time. He's like, look, things are painful. Things are always painful. But if you know where the future lies, go get there. You don't need to delay the pain. I'll go and give Consero the plug, and Chris didn't even request this, and that's why I'm going to wait on my filet mignon. But Consero is a big part of this with us, especially from an integration perspective and on our finance systems. I mean, they've got a dedicated team that really knows how to get companies off of existing systems and moved into their tech stack. That was a big reason why we chose Consero many years ago to be our partner, and that's worked out. That's been worked out really well, because there's been times where we've had 4 acquisitions going at the same time, along with an integration, and we just didn't have the bandwidth on our team to do that. And that's where Consero really shined. So
Well, thank you for that. I know, we have been part of those integrations and what we try to do, and I'll give credit back to Trey and his Idera team. One of the things that we really have learned and we push among our clients is, go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and get moving forward. The longer it takes you to ease into an integration or an acquisition and get it integrated into your financial tech stack, that basically the more difficult it becomes. And I'll give credit to them for helping us realize and understand that, and see how we put this model together to implement these acquisitions on a very quick basis. We're getting them on the tech stack and spun up in, like he said, the 30 to 60 day time frame, and moving forward. And I love the getting to the future piece that Randy talks about from that standpoint. So, Michael, you've been with many different companies in different industries from that. What do you see as some of the big key pieces in the acquisition environment today?
Sure. So just to give some, just some additional background. So I'm located in Birmingham, Alabama. My first private equity portfolio was with Brands, based here out of Birmingham, and I was lucky to be on the ground floor starting with the initial acquisition by our private equity partners. We were backed by Providence Equity, GSD, and Lightyear Capital. And so I kind of feel Trey's pain. Over a 3.5-year period, we did 17 acquisitions, had 25 entities in all over that period. And my role was really from an operational finance perspective. So our private equity partners did most of the due diligence on finding the acquisitions and then working on the deals. And then as soon as the deal closed, finance was the tip of the spear in terms of integrating those acquisitions into Therapy Brands. So we did a lot of planning and working closely with the company on the operational side to get them integrated. And so and then after that, I joined another local firm here in Birmingham by the name of Feathering Capital, that acquired a company called Experlogix out of Salt Lake City, Utah, that is a CPQ platform provider, and had the opportunity to actually be involved with some international acquisitions. So got some international experience and learned how cultures and ways of doing business. And so it was a great learning experience for me. And then it was great to then come to Consero and be on the other side of the coin, where we were trying to bring on and build up resources in terms of building out finance platforms, and then now to be on the side with Consero, where we're helping companies with that infrastructure in place. So it's been good to see both sides.
All right. Thank you for that. Keith, I know, we've seen over the last, maybe 18 months or so, a slowdown in deal volume and various things, driven a lot by interest rates, driven a lot by quote unquote recession and things that people are seeing. But it seems like deal volume is starting to pick up and things like that. What are you seeing as far as the market for new M&A deals and things like that? And what do you think is on the horizon for that?
Yeah, like it's a great question. I think like most other finance folks, I'm very much a data-driven person. So I tried to find a few stats for everyone. Your comment on the slowdown in the deal volume over the last couple of years. I pulled up some information from one of the lawyers that we worked with, and like the slowdown has been stunning. They show that from an annual deal volume in the US, which was at a peak of 1.9 trillion in the full year 2021, that's down to 0.9 trillion for the first 3 quarters of this year. So annualize that, gives it a little bit more, but that's still down like 40% overall. And then if you zoom in and look at Q1 through Q3 figures for 2023 versus last year, they still show that deal value is down something like 20%. So not quite as dramatic. And then interestingly, if you look at the number of deals, that's actually down only like 4%. So still a lot of deals getting done, but the larger buyouts just really aren't happening, which, yeah, I would attribute to a lot of the same dynamics you called out around challenges in the leverage loan markets and, teams in general across private equity firms being really focused on the tuck-in side of things to add scale and probably average down their entry multiple. So then to your question, as I look ahead to 2024, I think probably the best indicator that I could think of would be the number of deal NDAs being processed. Not super easy to get a hold of that information, but there are a few firms out there that do a bunch of outsourcing work, and was able to find some of that data. And it actually shows that NDAs being processed for new sell-side banker mandates were up 20% in Q2, up another 20% in Q3. And on just sort of an absolute basis, that kind of puts us back in line with where we were during some of those kind of peak 2021 figures. So there's no indication of deal size or what sector they're in, which I think could really skew the outlook up or down depending on where you're focused. But overall, I think my expectation and sort of the rest of the market's expectation is for a pretty healthy pickup in deals next year. And then one last point, which may be a little bit less data-driven, but anecdotal, and I'll stop rambling, is I was on a call with a smaller investment bank, and I asked them the same question about what they're seeing in their pipeline, what are their expectations for next year, and their response was pretty shocking. They said that they actually plan to launch more sell-side processes in Q1 of 24 than they did in the entirety of 2023. So look, TBD if those deals get done, right? Valuations have to match up, and whether or not folks accept the new normal might be a different story. But I think that general sentiment is right and supports certainly my view, and I think everyone else's, that we'll see a pretty nice uptick next year in deals.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I think we're all kind of feeling that we're feeling 2024 will be better from that perspective. So thank you for that. Again, I'll take kind of a part of one of the questions in the Q&A piece and come back to you, Trey, on what are some of the keys to a successful acquisition. I know they're talking about the failure rates of some of these being pretty high, but from your standpoint, what do you think are some of the keys to not having failures in some of these deals and things that you guys do?
Well, and I'm gonna echo what Keith said too first. I mean, out of all the deals we've done, we've only done one deal in the last 18 months. And it's a bid ask issue. We've given we've done NDAs and LOIs, and at the end of the day, I don't know how many we've done. We've probably given 10 offers in the last 18 months, closed one, and out of the others that didn't close, the vast majority of those just didn't do a deal at all because they couldn't get to the valuation. The bid ask spread has just been too wide over
too much
months. And because there's not being a lot of deals done, you don't know what the right market value is of deals right now. So that's the hard part, right? And so we are very excited about 2024 because we think there will be a lot of transactions that'll set some valuations and will help us figure out, what the right mark is, because we're a value buyer in a lot of cases, and and people just think they're worth too much money because maybe they think they're worth what they were in 2021 or what they were told they were worth anyway. And so I would tell you that the key to a successful acquisition kind of strategy is, and I'm going to be a master of the obvious here, but buy a good company and be careful to buy the right multiple and be patient. For all the deals we've done, we've passed on more, and walked away from a few even during diligence based on what we found. And the key was just don't get deal fever, and if you don't have a lot of experience here, or even if you do, you've probably seen, you can get deal fever because you get way down a path. You're like, well, we just got to get this deal done. We've already done all this work. But I will tell you, if you have a bad feeling about it or something doesn't smell right, it's usually worse than you think. And once you own it, it's going to be worse than you think. So, it's your gut's going to be right on this stuff, and don't feel like you're locked in. I think that's just number one against that. And I know that's pretty obvious. The other thing is have good partners that help you. You need a good investment banker if you use that. We don't really use investment bankers. We have a lot of that talent in-house. But if you don't have it yet, you don't have a lot of experience there, investment bankers can be helpful. It's just expensive, so get ready. You want to have a third party help you with financial and tax diligence if you're on the finance side. If you're going to finance the deal, obviously you need a good debt structure and you need good lenders to help you get there. You need a great legal partner. We have a kind of an in-house legal partner, even though they're an external firm. We're probably 80% of their business, so they feel like our employees, and they're actually, our lawyers on my staff meeting every single week. And then making sure you're discussing the deal early and often with all your partners and internally, because that helps smooth the process. Just the more you can talk about it, the more you get your head around it. And there were times we weren't doing that, and we've gotten a lot better at that over time. Because you want your diligence to happen across all your functions, and you want to make sure your functions are diving into what they care about. And you need to make sure you see the warts. There's going to be warts on every business. Everybody knows where their own problems are, and they're not always forthcoming about that. And you need to find it and figure it out, because any big surprise post close really sucks. Something that about that you're buying with your eyes open, that you're out here, we know how we're going to deal with this, or we're just going to have to suffer through it. Whatever that case may be, is a lot better than figuring it out post close. And a seller always wants to move fast. That time does kill deals, and so you do have to move fast in these processes in a lot of cases, but make sure you do the work. There are times when you're like, well, I guess we just won't have to look at that. If they don't have it, and they just can't get to it, and they can't create that report, sometimes you need to wait for it. You need to force it, because that also impacts your integration and all kinds of other things. And once you own it, the results matter. And so the last thing I tell you, that just a successful acquisition is, because results matter, fast integration is absolutely critical. You want to have an integration playbook. And if you've never done one, or if you've only done a couple, you want to make sure that you have a playbook in place, and with checklists and everything else. And every deal has its own variables, but the base integration is, and what you're doing is really very similar across most deals. So have a plan, have a playbook, and then measure to that plan. So what we've had many functions, that have done their own things, and it wasn't well orchestrated. The first couple acquisitions that we did, and the one I told you that was even bigger than we were, it was our first time as a team to do that, and it just wasn't as well orchestrated. We had a playbook, but it's kind of in everybody's minds. It wasn't really written down. Everyone's kind of moving in some different directions, and it was way messier than it should have been. Now, after going through all this, we have a very specific playbook. We have very specific checklists, both in diligence and integration. And then we couple that with weekly status updates, communication, coordination about who is doing what. And then if there's key issues, we know who's attacking those issues. So that's been a huge help for us. And even if you're not in the middle of a process, or even thinking about a process now, to start thinking about checklists and playbooks goes a long way.
Right. To go to the playbook and checklist piece, one of the things that we've done at Consero, we've developed a very extensive playbook and checklist for all of our clients' acquisitions. And the last update that I saw, we had 496 steps in that playbook. And, a lot of those don't apply to every deal, but a lot of them you can gloss through. But, we've tried to pull everybody from the financial resource side together to help put that together. Because Trey, like you said, you don't want to get into a deal and go, oh man, we didn't set this up right, or we missed this part. And that's helped us develop the checklist and things that we use as we're bringing on these acquisitions. So, Michael, on some of the things too about, the failure rate or the difficulty in some of the deals, what are some of the things that you see from that standpoint that can cause deals to maybe not have the same or right return, or sometimes even fail potentially?
I would agree that it was, up front, it's the failure.
We're losing Michael's feed here. I'm going to go ahead and move on. I guess we've lost his feed. And Keith, I'll come back a little bit to you on your deals from a success rate. Again, it comes back to preparation and diligence and doing the right things. But what are some of your experiences related to that?
Yeah, so I'd echo Trey's comments around having the right checklist and process set up, and that doesn't happen on day one. At Seaside, we're working with companies that are of, a smaller scale. And so we're talking, tens of millions of dollars in revenue. They aren't going to have the same sort of resources that are available. And so our team provides the appropriate support to them, certainly as we're working through diligence and working with third parties and negotiating documentation. But as you do that each time, it sort of strengthens the muscle, and you add to your checklist and you think more and more about the integration plan. And I'd say in my experience, one of the things that often gets overlooked is the tracking side of things. So of course, A plus B equals, C squared on paper sounds great, but then actually being able to track through to that plan can be a challenge. And so if to the extent you're doing deals that are expected to drive synergies, whether it's on the cost side or on the revenue side from cross-selling, or even on the CapEx side from purchasing, actually being able to be really thoughtful about what those figures are and then truly track to them makes a world of a difference a year down the road, because it's often easy on day one to say, for example, we had headcount of 50, now it's headcount of 45, but 6 months later, you don't realize that those same 5 heads entered back into the business in a different segment. That is a key part when you're talking about trying to drive value out of some of these acquisitions.
All right. Definitely makes sense there. I guess between both of you, and either one of you could probably answer this, but target selection and things like that for deals. I know you've got teams of people looking for deals on a regular basis, and Trey, you talk about value additions and things like that. But how do you source looking for the deals and things that are out there if you're not using an investment banker or anything from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, once we started rolling after our first few deals, we created our own business development deal team. We knew that M&A was going to be kind of our bread and butter, and so our biz dev team is constantly working our pipeline of deals. We know the big players in our different spaces that we play in, and so that deal team stays in contact with the companies that we like. We also talk to investment bankers in the space, so they know what's going on. They know who's thinking about coming to market. So it's always keeping kind of your thumb on that to just figure out what's going on. I mean, we also get a lot of ideas from our private equity sponsors.
Right.
We have no lack of deal flow. It's just, can we get to the right price and are the companies for sale or not? I mean, there are times when companies going through a process, so everyone knows they're for sale, and it's a bunch of people kind of taking a bite at the apple, doing diligence. There's others that we have to talk into selling, right? So we're talking to these people. We know we like them. We know we like the technology. Maybe we've heard about them and they're pretty small and no one else really knows. And we had to talk them into our best acquisition ever. Actually, was a company out of Germany that we had heard of from a company, from a biz dev person on a company that we bought, said, hey, these guys are pretty good. We go and talk to them. And it took us almost a year to talk them into selling to us. And it was just two brothers that ran the company. And we talked them into it, which so they didn't go through a process. So we actually got a really good price on it, and they got the deal done really quick. Once they decided to go, the deal happened really quickly, and they didn't have to go through, all the mishmash of the process. So there's all kinds of ways that the deals come together. And the key is keeping your ear to the ground and making sure that you know kind of what's out there.
Right. Keith, kind of same situation for you, or do you have certain
I think
things
so.
you follow?
I mean, the sort of nirvana in private equity land of a deal is that it's off market or proprietary. And, for folks that are in that mid-market, upper market sort of PE sponsor land, you don't generally find companies with 100 million plus of revenue that nobody else knows about and nobody else is talking to. But Trey's point, as you're looking at some of the smaller companies, or certainly some, family founder run companies, having business development teams that are talking to the right bankers, sure, they can be helpful with industry work. There's a whole network of brokers out there. And then, of course, there's, just sort of hitting the floor in conferences and talking to different folks and having your biz dev team out in front of all of those individuals, talking to them, keeping track of who the targets are and, what comments they made and are they interested, allows you to develop a pipeline. And then, to Trey's point, it can be a pretty long sales process. And part of that is a charm offensive, and part of it is helping them understand your strategy and what it's like to work and partner with you and all the value that you can bring, not just from a financial perspective, do some estate planning, but also from an actual business building perspective and what their company can be, not just, 2 years from now, but 5 and 10 years down the road.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know we're getting close to running up on the end of our deal. We've seen a couple of questions, and we'll try to respond to some of those with some emails and some other things with some of that coming back. But again, we certainly appreciate everybody joining today.